Now let's talk about the third thing you need to know about blockchain, which is that it's basically like a giant Google Doc. Think about it. With a regular Word document saved on your computer, you have the only copy. So if you make edits to it, no one else is going to see them unless you send them your latest version. And what happens if you accidentally delete something? Poof, it's gone forever. That's the traditional database. One central authority that's holding the master copy, making all the edits and telling everyone what's true. Now let's compare that to a Google Doc. Everyone with access sees the same version at the same time. If I type a sentence in a Google Doc and you've got access, you can see it instantly. If you add a comment, everyone knows. There's no confusion about who has the latest copy because there's only one shared version. That's pretty close to how blockchain works. But blockchain actually takes it to another level. Think of it almost like a Google Doc that is open to anyone and everyone, but it's actually run by a specific set of rules that no one can change. If I enter our imaginary blockchain Google Doc and try to add something that violates its rules, it's automatically going to be checked and verified by every other computer that has access to that document. So the change I try to make is not going to be recorded. But if the change does comply with those rules, it is recorded. And once it's recorded on the blockchain, as we now know, it can never be erased. It's permanent. Someone couldn't come in later and simply highlight a paragraph and delete it, hoping no one would notice. Welcome back, everyone, to our brand new podcast, Crypto Explained. In today's episode, we're going to break down everything you need to know about blockchain. Here's the thing. Almost half of people in the US who don't currently own or use crypto say they just don't get it. They don't understand how it all works. And nearly 70% of them say that with more trustworthy information, they'd consider getting involved. And a third of those folks told us that they're open to learning. But the truth is, overall confidence and understanding of the technology is still pretty low. That's a huge number of people that are basically telling us, I've heard the word blockchain, I'm sort of familiar with crypto, but I really couldn't explain it even if my life depended on it. And honestly, I get it. The word itself sounds complicated. The headlines make it feel intimidating, and crypto hype doesn't exactly make it easier to know who to trust. But the truth is that crypto is becoming more mainstream, and it's time that someone clearly explains what it is. So in today's episode, I'm stripping it all down for you. No jargon, no tech headaches, just 7 simple things you need to know about blockchain to get started. By the end of this, hopefully you're going to be able to explain it all in plain English. And I promise you'll walk away from this episode with a clear, no BS understanding of what this all is and why it all matters. Before we dive in, I just wanted to take a quick second to thank you for being here. I know there are a million podcasts you could be listening to right now, so the fact that you're listening to us is really appreciated. And if you like what you hear today and you want to keep learning with us, go ahead and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts to make sure you never miss an episode. We're going to be dropping new eps every Wednesday. And if you want even more daily crypto content, updates, and education, be sure to follow the National Cryptocurrency Association on YouTube, Instagram, Meta, X, or LinkedIn. We're going to be sharing quick, easy-to-digest posts every single day that'll help you stay ahead of the crypto space. And you'll find all of those links right here in the show notes. So let's start today's episode by debunking the biggest blockchain myth, that it's just too complicated to understand. This is the number one thing that stops people from even trying to learn about crypto. The jargon sounds super intimidating. Things like hashes, validators, proof of work, or proof of stake. Suddenly, it feels like you need a computer science degree just to keep up. But here's the truth. Once you strip away all that technical language, blockchain is actually pretty simple. At the end of the day, it's just a super secure record-keeping system. Think of it like a giant notebook that's keeping track of all of your transactions, running in order. Once a transaction is recorded, it can't be erased. So that notebook is available for everyone to see, and no single person or group controls it. That's it. That's blockchain. It doesn't have to be scary, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. And to prove it to you, I've broken it down into 7 simple things you need to know. Bite-sized explanations that are going to give you the confidence without drowning you in all that tech speak. So let's jump right into the list. Number 1, blockchain at its core is just a database. At the most basic level, blockchain isn't magic, and it isn't some mysterious tech or buzzword. It's a database that follows a set of rules. That's it. And a database is simply just a system for storing information. Think about the Notes app on your phone, or a shared Google spreadsheet, or even a giant digital notebook that keeps track of who wrote what and when. So what's actually in this database, you're probably wondering? transactions. But don't get stuck thinking about transactions only meaning money moving around, although that is the most common example. A transaction could be anything: buying a concert ticket, logging the movement of goods in a supply chain, or even recording your medical data. And yes, of course, sending crypto coins from one wallet to another. So every time something happens, a payment, a data transfer, a record update, it automatically gets written down in the blockchain's database. You can think of each entry almost like a receipt that says, yes, this event happened, here's when it happened, and here's the digital signature proving that it's authentic. And the key is that once that information is in the database, it can never get erased or rewritten later. It's there as part of the blockchain's permanent history. So at the simplest level, blockchain is just a place where receipts of all kinds live forever, lined up in order, and create a history that anyone can go back and check. That's blockchain. It's a simple system that automatically records information, and it's open, secure, and tamper-proof. Now, why does that matter, and why should you care? Because trust is everything at the end of the day. When you put money into a bank, you're trusting that the bank is going to manage your balance. Blockchain says, forget the middleman, trust the system itself. The rules are baked into blockchain's code. Think of it as the blockchain's math. So if the blockchain's code says that 1 dozen means 12, someone can't come along later and say, actually, that 1 dozen means 11. So yes, at its core, blockchain is really just a database, but a database that never forgets, never erases, and can never be changed by any one single person. And that's what makes it so powerful. So what does it even mean when someone uses blockchain? What does it mean to use blockchain in crypto? When you hear people talk about crypto, they're really talking about cryptocurrency transactions that are happening on a blockchain. Using crypto on a blockchain just means that you're buying, selling, or even just moving a digital asset without the intervention of a third party like a bank or credit card company. Instead, what's happening is that every transaction is automatically and permanently written into the chain. Here are some of the main ways that people use blockchain in crypto. One is sending or receiving crypto, like you're paying back a friend for brunch. Another one is storing value. So even when you're simply holding crypto, you're still technically using the blockchain. It's just that your wallet, which is your personal digital safe, is connected to the blockchain and proves you own those coins. And by the way, we're going to get into wallets again in another episode very soon. All that matters right now is that you don't need a bank or app that needs to vouch for you. The blockchain itself is all the proof you need. And then when it comes to crypto payments in the real world, so if you buy a coffee from a shop that accepts crypto, that too gets recorded on the blockchain. And there are even more ways that we're going to get into in another episode very soon. All of these transactions are permanently recorded on the blockchain like we talked about. So if you're worried about your privacy, don't. I promise blockchain is actually really secure, and we're going to cover that bit later. Let's talk about the second thing you need to know, which is that blockchain, aka that database, is decentralized. You've probably heard that word 1,000 times, but what does it really mean? Let's start with this. When something is centralized, it means that there's one boss, one hub, one authority calling all of the shots. Think about your bank account and all of your money being tracked and recorded directly by your bank. Decentralization flips that on its head. Instead of one boss, control is spread out across thousands of computers all around the world. Each one of them has the same exact blockchain database. And here's the best part. They all actually have to agree that the blockchain rules were followed before anything new gets added to the chain. That agreement is called consensus, and it's done automatically. So let's use our dozen analogy from earlier. If one person tries to sneak in and say, hey, I added a dozen of something to the blockchain, but they're only adding to 11, the computers are actually going to automatically check and verify that that's going to happen. And they'll say something like, nope, that's not true, doesn't match the rules. And then that transaction won't be recorded on blockchain. Or let's say someone tries to spend the same crypto token twice or double spend. The computers are going to see that you've actually already made that first transaction using the token, and so it won't process the second transaction because it's against the rules. So any person trying to game the system can't conspire with someone else to get their transactions through. So why does that matter? Because decentralization makes blockchain resistant to corruption, fraud, or even censorship. If one person's going to try to cheat, the blockchain's going to ignore them. It's a system where trust doesn't come from who's in charge, but the fact that actually no one can be in charge. Now let's talk about the third thing you need to know about blockchain, which is that it's basically like a giant Google Doc. Think about it. With a regular Word document saved on your computer, you have the only copy. So if you make edits to it, no one else is going to see them unless you send them your latest version. And what happens if you accidentally delete something? Poof! It's gone forever. That's the traditional database. One central authority that's holding the master copy, making all the edits and telling everyone what's true. Now let's compare that to a Google Doc. Everyone with access sees the same version at the same time. If I type a sentence in a Google Doc and you've got access, you can see it instantly. If you add a comment, everyone knows. There's no confusion about who has the latest copy because there's only one shared version. That's pretty close to how blockchain works. But blockchain actually takes it to another level. Think of it almost like a Google Doc that is open to anyone and everyone, but it's actually run by a specific set of rules that no one can change. So let's play with this analogy for a second. If I enter our imaginary blockchain Google Doc and try to add something that violates its rules, it's automatically going to be checked and verified by every other computer that has access to that document. So the change I try to make is not going to be recorded. But if the change does comply with those rules, it is recorded. And once it's recorded on the blockchain, as we now know, it can never be erased. It's permanent. Someone couldn't come in later and simply highlight a paragraph and delete it, hoping no one would notice. I know I've certainly never tried to do that at work. But with a Google Doc, Google is still the boss. They own the servers and they can change the code, and technically they could just shut down. With blockchain, there is no Google. There's no company in charge, no single editor-in-chief pulling all the strings. The document gets distributed across thousands of computers at the same time, and they all have to agree on what's written. So yeah, blockchain is definitely more secure and tamper-proof than a Google Doc. But I hope this analogy made sense and helps you see that the blockchain is really just a shared record that everyone can see, that no single company or person controls, and that once something gets added to it, as long as they're playing by the rules, it can never be changed or erased. Now let's talk about the fourth thing you need to know about blockchain, which is that it's stored on thousands of computers. And when I say blockchain is stored on thousands of computers, I'm not talking about one giant server farm hidden in Silicon Valley or some secret government database. These computers, which are often called nodes, are scattered all over the world, which means anyone, anywhere can run one. A node is basically just like a regular computer that has special blockchain software installed on it. It can be sitting in someone's apartment in New York, it can be at a university lab in Tokyo, a warehouse in Germany, or someone's laptop in Nairobi. Each of these nodes are going to keep the same copy of the entire blockchain, like having thousands of identical notebooks stored in different places. So here's the question you might have now. Do I have to run a node to use the blockchain? Luckily, the answer is no. You don't even have to download the blockchain software to use it. You can rely on exchanges or wallet service providers like Coinbase that'll send your transaction to the blockchain to be recorded for you. But if you really do want, you can download the blockchain directly onto your computer so you can interact with it. You don't need to buy some secret machine or get invited to an exclusive club. To be part of the blockchain network, all you really need is a regular computer and the right software. Every blockchain, from Bitcoin to Ethereum to the XRP ledger and many others, has its own free open source program that you can directly download. That program is going to make your computer a node. Once it's installed, your computer connects to the network, and then it starts talking to all of the other nodes around the world. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because unless you're a real crypto or computer geek, you probably don't want to do this, at least not yet. So just remember that when we say blockchain lives on thousands of computers, I mean that literally. People all over the world are voluntarily downloading the software, syncing the data, and keeping these machines online. Together, they form the living, breathing backbone of blockchain. And here's the really cool part. In blockchain, anyone can raise their hand and say, I want a copy too. It's open by design. Now let's get into the fifth thing that you need to know about blockchain, which is that every transaction is almost like a digital Lego brick. Imagine that every single time you use crypto, whether you're paying your friend back for brunch, paying for a concert ticket online, or tipping a content creator, and even checking out at a grocery store that accepts crypto, like Whole Foods. That action becomes a tiny Lego brick. But on its own, one Lego brick doesn't really seem like much, unless of course you keep them around your house and step on them, and then it really hurts your foot. Those bricks don't float around randomly. The blockchain takes every one of those bricks, records it, and then snaps it onto the latest transaction recorded, like when you connect two Lego pieces. That way, every brick becomes part of a solid block on the chain and just grows and grows and grows. But if you wanted, you can actually go ahead and trace every single brick back to the first one. And the number of crypto transactions that make up a block can really vary depending on the blockchain size limit. Sometimes it can be a few thousand transactions, but it can also sometimes just be one. And what makes these bricks so special is that they're designed to lock in place forever. You can add new ones, but you can't pull out the old ones. That's why blockchain is so secure. History cannot be rewritten without the entire system noticing. Here's how it's going to work in practice. You send $50 worth of crypto. That's a Lego brick. Someone else sends an NFT. That's another Lego brick. Someone else pays for their coffee with crypto. That's one more brick. All of these little transactions are recorded and added permanently to the chain forever. And here's the really genius part. If anyone tries to change one of those old Lego bricks, say they try to say that they sent $5,000 instead of $50, that's going to be like trying to jam a fake Lego piece onto the chain. It's not going to connect, and the blockchain's going to reject it. So when we say every transaction is like a Lego brick, what we really mean is that it's small on its own, but it's powerful when it's stacked together. It locks in place permanently and creates an unbreakable structure. Can't be secretly swapped out because it's permanently connected to that chain. And a Lego brick that doesn't fit the rules can't be added to the chain. By the time you zoom out, you don't just have a pile of random little Lego pieces. You have an enormous tower that represents the entire unchangeable history of the blockchain. Now let's talk about the sixth thing you need to know about blockchain, which is that it's public, but it still protects your privacy. One of the coolest things about blockchain is it really balances transparency and privacy. On the one hand, every single transaction is visible to everyone and anyone in the world. You don't need special permission or a secret login to see what's happening. That ledger is wide open. That's what makes it really trustworthy. Nobody can secretly edit or hide information. But here's the twist. You don't see people's names, birthdays, or social security numbers. Instead, transactions are tied to wallet addresses, which we're going to talk about a lot more in another episode. Basically, they're long strings of letters and numbers. It's almost like saying wallet X1001 is paying wallet Y2002, instead of saying Julie's paying Sarah for pizza. That way, the system is fully transparent without exposing any of your personal identity details. Now let's get into the last thing you absolutely need to learn about blockchain in this episode. Number 7, it's faster and more reliable. Now that since we know blockchain is decentralized and it means that no one person or group controls it, what's the impact of cutting out these third-party middlemen? Traditionally, with your bank, it verifies your payment. Your credit card company approves your purchase. A notary confirms your signature. A ticketing site validates your order. These third parties can slow things down, and they can also charge extra fees and sometimes, unfortunately, even mess up. Blockchain says, let's give you, yes, you, all of the control. The network and the rules, they govern themselves automatically, and they're going to instantly verify whenever you buy, sell, or trade a digital asset, which could be money, art, property, or so many more things. And as you now know, thousands of computers all over the world are checking those transactions. And as long as they agree that the rules have been followed, when it's valid, it's going to get added to the chain automatically. No bankers, no brokers, no gatekeepers. It's all up to you. But by removing those middlemen, blockchain actually makes transactions faster and more reliable. The technology gives you all of that power to decide when, where, and how you want to use and move your assets without any extra stops or confusion along the way. It's almost like going straight to the source instead of waiting for your manager to approve things, like waiting 3 days to wire money internationally. And that's it. Those are the 7 things you need to know. Now that you get what a blockchain is, I know you have so many more questions. So let me answer some follower questions and things we've heard from friends and family when we're talking about crypto and blockchain, rapid fire style. When I make a crypto transaction, do I need to do anything manually, or does the blockchain make those transactions automatically? When you send crypto, the blockchain works in the background automatically, so you don't have to do anything extra. Next question. Is there one blockchain for all cryptocurrencies, or does each have its own? Great question. Most major cryptocurrencies or coins like Bitcoin, Ethereum, or XRP run on their own unique blockchain. But if you want to go a layer deeper, and I might lose you on this, so bear with me, different tokens can also be built on top of existing blockchains and can exist on multiple different networks. We're going to get into this a lot more later. Can a blockchain get shut down? A blockchain cannot get shut down because it runs on thousands of computers, those nodes that you learned about that operate all around the world. Can my crypto just disappear if the blockchain crashes? Great question. No, your crypto does not disappear if the blockchain for any reason stutters or stalls, which is pretty rare but can happen sometimes just because there are so many transactions that are trying to get through the system all at once. But since copies of all transactions are permanently recorded on the blockchain and maintained on thousands of computers, your transaction's never going to disappear. Is blockchain safe? This is a question we get a lot. Can people steal my coins, right? Blockchain itself is very safe, but we know that whether you're dealing with your bank account, your Venmo account, your crypto account, even your online dating account, security always needs to be top of mind. And that means don't share your info with anyone you haven't met in person, and certainly don't trust financial advice from them. Always protect your passwords, aka your private keys, which we're going to talk about much more in another episode. And never click on random links. You always want to do your research, and remember, golden rule, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. All right, there you have it, the 7 key things you need to know about blockchain in order to start to understand what's going on in the world of crypto. Blockchain is simply a database of transactions. Every entry is permanently recorded like a digital receipt. It's decentralized, meaning no single person or company controls it. It works like a shared record that everyone can see, but nobody can secretly change. That database is stored on thousands of computers around the world. Every one of those transactions need to snap in like a Lego brick and locks into the chain forever. It's public and transparent, but wallet addresses protect your personal identity. It puts you in the driver's seat and makes your transactions faster and more reliable. All right, so I know we covered a lot of new terms today. Let's strip them all down into plain English before we wrap up our deep dive into the blockchain. Blockchain. It's a giant digital notebook. Every transaction gets recorded in permanent ink, lined up in order, and cannot be erased. Decentralized. No single boss is in charge. Instead, thousands of computers agree on the rules together so that no one person can cheat the system. Node. It's a regular computer that keeps a copy of the blockchain. Think of it like another bookshelf storing the same notebook. Transaction. You probably know this one, but that's anytime something happens on the blockchain. It's not just about sending or receiving money. It can be buying a ticket, logging data, and many other ways you can use crypto that we'll get into in future episodes. Just remember that each one of them acts like a digital receipt. Block. A group of transactions bundled together like snapping those Lego bricks into place. Once it's locked in, can't be changed. What about a wallet address? That's like your digital mailing address where people can send you crypto. It's safe to share with everyone. Okay, so now that we've broken down what blockchain actually is, I want to introduce you to a recurring segment you'll be seeing here on the Crypto Explained podcast, Crypto in the Wild. This is where we're going to break down the real-world stories of how crypto is being used in ways you probably wouldn't expect. Because let's be real, when most people hear crypto, they picture confusing price charts, jargon, and maybe even some laser-eyed memes that make no sense. But crypto is way bigger than coins on a screen. It's starting to show up in industries you'd never connect to finance. So for today's example, let's talk about cattle ranchers and the long-standing pain point for them. Let's dive into the problem and why it matters so you can understand how people are really using crypto in the wild. The problem. For more than a century, ranchers have sold cattle with nothing more than a handshake and a paper bill of sale. Once an animal leaves the ranch, that trail goes cold. Consumers can't see how a cow was raised. Ranchers who invest in better genetics or humane handling have no way to prove it. And retailers and consumers are left with marketing claims instead of facts. The solution. This is where crypto technology steps in. Programs like Cattle Proof Verified are using blockchain ledgers, the same technology that underpins cryptocurrencies, to log every single detail of an animal's life. Its birth date, its breed, its vaccination records, anytime the pasture moves. Every entry is time-stamped and added to a permanent record that can't be altered because, as you know, that's what blockchain does. So as a calf is going to travel from ranch to feedlot to processor, that digital record is going to travel with it. The result is you have an unbroken chain of custody that everyone in the supply chain can check. So why does that matter? The benefits are really big. Ranchers finally have proof of origin and animal welfare practices. Retailers and restaurants can verify what they're getting. And consumers like you and me can actually scan a QR code at the grocery store and instantly start to see the whole story behind the beef that's going onto my plate. As Rob Jennings, who's the president of Cattle Proof Verified, put it, crypto is really at the crossroads of old West and new tech. And you can actually meet Rob and hear more of his story right on our website. So let's talk about how it works. Every calf gets an RFID ear tag. That's going to be linked to its unique crypto record. Ranch hands can then scan that tag whenever the animal's vaccinated, weighed, or moved, and those updates automatically upload instantly to the blockchain. So when ownership changes hands at an auction, that digital record transfers with the animal. By the time the beef is boxed and shipped to stores, processors can just add those final details like the grade of the meat and the weight. And then at the meat counter, consumers like us can scan the package and review the entire verified history of that steak in seconds. The takeaway? Crypto doesn't replace the hard work of ranching, it enhances it. By turning animals' histories into transparent digital ledgers, ranchers are now gaining leverage in markets that really reward quality of the meat. And consumers are also gaining confidence in what they're serving for dinner. From heritage family ranchers to high-end grocers in big cities, crypto technology is pulling the cattle trail into the 21st century. And there you have it. That wraps up today's episode. If you found this helpful and you want to keep building your knowledge step by step with us, make sure you hit subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode. We're just getting started, and every week I'll take you further on your crypto-curious journey and help you cut through the noise, understand the basics, and move towards becoming truly crypto confident. So stay tuned for next week's episode, and until then, thank you so much for listening.